Tonight, I want us to go a little farther than we have been going with the things that are going to happen and are revealed to us in Revelation chapter 13. And very quickly, just to summarize, I know it's really in the same places that we have been. I want to go and remind us of what has been said up till this time. So, in chapter 13, verse 1 is a continuation of chapter 12 and the very last verse of chapter 12, where we read, "So the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus." So that's kind of we're going to talk about this war that's going to take place against the rest of her children, is the way that he describes it, and that's the rest of the children, the basically the adopted children of Israel. And so there's the children of Israel, the natural branches, and there's the adopted children, the adopted branches, and that's us. Okay, so the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children and keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And we're going to see that there's going to be a great time of pressure. And that's what the word that's translated tribulation really is talking about. It's a time of great pressure against the church of Jesus Christ. Now, there's already, you can feel, I think, the pressure that's beginning to mount against the church, and how people are already beginning to be conformed or pushed into certain shapes and certain places they never thought they'd be, because of the things that the pressure that's going on. It's causing division in some denominations. It's causing destruction in some families. It's causing a lot of different things. And so far, there's been a real effort, in a sense, to almost hide from the people of America that fact that there is a war going on against Christ and against his children, the children of the woman, who are the other children, the ones that keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. So we're coming to a time soon, I believe, according to Zechariah chapter 12, when the children of Israel are going to believe in Jesus. They're going to recognize the Messiah that has already come. Right now they're looking forward to the Messiah. Those who believe believe that the Messiah is yet to come, and there are many of them. Now there are a lot that are almost agnostic or even atheistic, but are still by heritage and other ways part of the children of Israel. But there's also a lot that recognize the spiritual implications of things, and they are watching for and waiting for signs of the Messiah's coming. But when an event takes place that's going to be an event that's bigger than anything that's imaginable almost, when it takes place in Israel, in the land of Israel, and when God brings about the deliverance that he brings about, then that remnant that are believing and trusting are going to turn to Jesus. And so those that are left of the children of Israel, those that have around the world, those who have already gone and those who will go to Israel, they're going to recognize him for who he is. But at that point, the entire persecution is going to be against the believers of Jesus Christ. And so it's going to be anti-Christian persecution and pressure that's building upon the church. And so when this shooting occurred at the Catholic Church on the first day of school in Minnesota, there was an effort to say this. The guy was against a lot of different things. He was against a lot of things that was going on, and because of the hormones he was taking, and to try to become a woman, and a lot of different things, that because of a lot of different things, it was just a bias against the Catholic Church itself. But now, as time went on, and as they've studied his manifestos and his different things, I've heard now more and more news accounts that are that have said that it's an antichrist, anti-Christian thing that was going on there, and so that it's against Christ that he was doing that, and against Christians, and so we're going to see, I should say, more and more, I believe, of the dragon being enraged with the children of Israel, but also with the children of God who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus, the rest of her children. And so all of them together, and the dragon is enraged. Now, has that rage began? My own thinking or wondering, I'll say, I'm gonna put it that way. I'm not saying I buy this, but I'm the only one I've heard say it, and I'm thinking it to some degree, that on October the 7th of 2023, when this flood came out of Gaza, Hamas against Israel in Judah, the very lower southern part of Israel, when that came about, and the type of bloodlust that went on, the type of killing that went on against especially innocents of all kinds, but women and children and others, how that seemed to be almost like a blood sacrifice to the satanic entity that here is referred to as the dragon. Other places we've seen it calls him the dragon, the serpent, the devil. He is. There is one place even talks about the cobra. And that's just in one spot. But anyway, that there's this is the dragon, the one, and I am wondering if it was in this attack and in the things that went on there that brought about enough of the reaction. There will be a reaction, and that reaction is from Michael, the archangel, one of the archangels, who will stand up and will cause heaven to reject. And I've told you before, I don't think it's the throne room of God, but I think it's the heaven below that, below the throne room of God, but above the air, that mid heaven, that second heaven, that the dragon, though, and his angels will be cast out of all of heaven. They will lose the ability to fly, I believe, and will be cast to earth. And so whether or not they can even fly on earth is something that's hard to understand. And apparently maybe even cast into the ocean at first, and then will gradually work their way up onto the land and all of that stuff. But anyway, that all, I'm wondering if that blood sacrifice, there's a blood sacrifice. When innocent blood is poured out upon the land, there has to be the death of the one who prepared that. Now, in each of these instances, when someone has brought that type of persecution against the church, then they have taken their own life. But the blood that's been poured out upon the nation, there is innocent blood. And in a lot of these places, there has been a large amount of pre-birth babies that have been sacrificed. Their blood has been poured out, and even though that they maybe even had a heart that was already beating and blood that was flowing through their veins and all of that, that heart was stopped, the blood was poured out, and the shedding of blood. Every one of those, an account has to be given, and that blood has to be paid for. And so, shed blood, for those that have committed, have shed blood, that the only way for that to be taken care of is that either the person who shed the blood, they have to die, or Christ died for those of us who have claimed all of our sin are under the blood of Christ. It's either the blood of Christ, or it is the blood of the perpetrator, or the blood of people in that land who did not stop it, did not keep it from taking place. Anyway, enough of all of that, except for the fact that the devil was enraged, the dragon was enraged, and went off to make war. That war is going to last for 1,260 days. And we'll go into that in a little more detail in a little bit. But so when that takes place, then the entire world will be developed into a being. And we studied this last week, and we've looked at it several times in the last few weeks. We'll just go very quickly through it tonight. But he said the dragon, or and some would leave that dragon out, and just as a continuation of the chapter we just read, of the verse we just read. And stood on the sands of the shores. So the dragon went off to make war with the children of the woman, and stood on the stand of the seashore. And then he says, then I saw, so in a sense, another vision. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads and 10 diadems. We'll look at that. We're going to look at that a lot for the next few weeks, I should say. I don't know about several, maybe a few, but through chapter 17 for certain. And probably we'll see this more all the way as we go all the way through to the end of the book. And so, but this beast that comes up, and he will take a very central, the beast will take a very central position in the fulfillment of prophecy from that point on. Now, the beast is comes up out of the sand of the seashore, which means out of the sea of humanity. The beast comes forward. The beast coming up out of the sea of humanity has 10 horns and 7 heads. The 7 heads it will describe in chapter 17 as 7 mountains or 7 kings, but not and 7 kings. So it stands for 7 mountains and 7 kings. I believe that probably the 7 mountains are probably the 7 continents. It was interesting to me to find out that not everybody agrees worldwide on whether there is 7 continents, 6 continents, or 5 continents, how many continents there are. But anyway, it's been generally accepted by most that there's 7 continents. The 10 horns would be 10 kings over those, and it describes all of that in some, and we'll see that not only tonight but in the times to come. And so the 10 kings, they have 10 crowns, and they have blasphemous names. In other words, names that don't take into account the holiness of God, and in fact say bad things about it. And then he said, I saw that the beast was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of the bear, mouth like the mouth of the lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and his great authority. Now we have seen, beginning in Daniel chapter 7, we saw the lion with the eagle's wings, the bear with the ribs in his teeth coming down from the north, the leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads. And those are the 3 kingdoms that are the first 3. And then the 4th is not described as anything. Here he's called the dragon, is the one that gives him power, but it doesn't say what the beast is. The beast is not, as he doesn't say that the beast is a dragon, and the beast is empowered by the dragon. And so I've got some thoughts on that that I'm not ready to talk about yet, but about the dragon and his power and his throne and his great authority. But the dragon will take control, will dominate the areas of the leopard, the bear, and the lion, and in fact will dominate all of the earth. So the entire earth will be brought under subjection, and he will trample the rest of these. The leopard, the bear, and the lion, they will live on through to the end of the tribulation, the 42 months, and then they will also live on during Christ's kingdom for 1,000 years. The dragon and his throne, the 4th beast, will not be allowed. The dragon will be cast into the abyss, where he'll have no control for during that 1,000 years, not able to tempt anyone or to communicate with anyone. And the beast that he controlled will be demolished, burned, and destroyed by fire. There, and we'll be studying that all the way through to the end of the book. He said, "Now I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain. And so his fatal wound was healed. The whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. And they worshiped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, 'Who is like the beast? And who is able to wage war with him?' There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. He opened his mouth to blaspheme against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority over every tribe, people, tongue, and nation was given to him." And I'm going to stop right there, but now you say, well, wow, we got through that in a hurry. Well, no, we didn't actually, because I wanted to kind of get that in context now as we go forward. So this beast that is made up of all the powers of the world. So if you were to take the main powers of the world today, the main powers of the world today are in the northern hemisphere, and so the lion, the bear, and the leopard are all. The leopard maybe will be almost across the middle, but but all in the northern hemisphere. Now there's a meeting going on right now. It's called. I won't talk about what it's called. Oh well, SCO I think is what it's called. But there's a meeting going on, and so the head of that is China, and China uh, president, premier, whatever, Xing Z or whatever his name is, Z. Anyway, he has an idea, and he is trying to empower the southern hemisphere now to take control as a power base that would be in competition with the northern hemisphere. And China will have great influence, does have great influence in all of those countries south of the equator. So China has a lot of influence in those countries, and China would like to see that with Russia, China, and India being the source of money, the source of power, control, various things. They will give authority and power and control and all that to these leaders, what we would call little dictators, I guess, in the southern hemisphere, south of the equator. And they would empower them to be able to be dictators in their own areas. And so he's got a plan for that. And they are seem to be joining. They acted like they're one big club in what I saw today, as it looks like that China and India are buying oil from Russia. That helps Russia. That helps them. And the United States standing in the way of that with the tariff situation and all of that. They're wanting to completely bypass the United States and everything the United States has control of, so that it will be almost isolated when they do all of this other stuff that they're trying to do. So that's all going on. And so, but the dragon will give the beast his power, his throne of great authority. And then he says, I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. Now, this deal of the heads that was slain. So I want to kind of go back to that for just a little bit. So there is a something that takes place, and we don't know exactly how this is going to take place. And I've tried to think in my mind, and a lot of people have as well. But here's what it says in Zechariah chapter 11, verse 15. The Lord said to me, take again for yourself the equipment of a foolish shepherd. In other words, a foolish shepherd is one who is over the area, especially over the has authority, power, control over Israel and the area, the land of Israel, and the people of Israel. And he says, so this can be a large or smaller, doesn't matter, but Israel has to be under their domination and control to a large extent. Now he says, take for yourself the equipment of a foolish shepherd. Why is he foolish? He says, "For behold, I'm going to raise up a shepherd in the land who will not care for the perishing, seek the scattered, heal the broken, or sustain the one standing, but will devour the flesh of the fat sheep, and tear off their hooves." So normally a shepherd is so in tune with their sheep that the sheep hear their voice, they recognize that voice, and they maybe they don't understand every command that the shepherd gives, but they would follow the shepherd, knowing that the shepherd will fight with the lion, will fight with a bear, will fight with a robber, will fight with anyone that tries to take a sheep, a lamb, from the herd, from the flock. And so they have a lot of confidence in the shepherd. Well, this shepherd is a shepherd who is a hireling. He cares nothing about the sheep other than they provide him with wool for clothing and meat for eating and like that. And otherwise, he cares nothing about them. And if a wolf wants one, or a bear wants one, or a thief wants one, or whatever, he really is not going to put himself out or to put himself between the sheep and whatever the threat is. So he's a foolish shepherd for that reason. He's not a good shepherd, in other words, a bad shepherd. For behold, I'm going to raise up a shepherd in the land. And so he is one that will not care for the perishing, seek the scattered, heal the broken, or sustain the one standing. All the things that a shepherd should do for his sheep. And I've got a wood burning that I brought back from over to the other house, and it's the one where the lamb is being carried by the shepherd, the lamb with the broken leg that the shepherd will carry him till his leg is healed. And when that time has come, now he has an attachment to the shepherd that he will not run off anymore. He will not go into the places of danger and all. He'll stay right with the shepherd as close as he can, and probably right underfoot like your little dogs do that will cause you to fall if you're not really careful because of the fact that how close that they want to be. That's the way the lamb would be. But this shepherd, he doesn't care for the perishing. If they're dying, let them die. Drag them out on top of a hill and let them die there. Just leave them, leave the body. He doesn't seek the ones that are lost, that have gone down into the crevice or ravines or into dangerous spots. He doesn't look for them or heal the broken when he finds one with a broken leg. He doesn't carry it. He doesn't. He just says that one will die because it's got a broken leg. I'm not carrying it. He doesn't heal the broken or sustain the one standing, finding food, finding water, and all of that, and making sure they get there. But all he wants to do is devour the fat, the flesh of the fat. And so the sheep is provided for us here, but so that we would understand anyway what it's talking about. Fat sheep tear off their hooves. He just wants what he can get out of it. And so here's what God says to that shepherd: woe to the worthless shepherd who leaves the flock. A sword will be on his arm and on his right eye, and his arm will be totally withered, and his right eye will be blind. Now, we read that the shepherd, or that the one that is going to be the Antichrist. The Antichrist will suffer a deadly head wound, or in other places it says a fatal head wound. Suffers a fatal head wound, and then is brought back to life, is healed. I don't understand how that's going to work. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't, but I do believe when we see it, we will recognize it. We've watched it, and I know that among the Islamists there is. My understanding that their prophecy actually some of their prophecies in not in their well not in the Quran but in another book that goes along with the Quran actually in some of them says that it doesn't say a right eye or his right arm like it does here it says it's his arm, his right eye, his right arm will be withered. It doesn't say this. His sword will be on his arm and on his right eye. So it doesn't say it's his right arm, but it does say it's his right eye. It makes that really clear. It's his right eye. But there's some discussion. Some of them believe it'll be the right eye, the left eye, but they believe that the Mahdi, when he comes, will have one eye that has been put out in battle warfare or something. I'm not sure that I understand. Never did understand that completely. But when they see an imam with a patch on his eye, as they did in the Taliban in Afghanistan, they are really watching to see because of that. But this one, it's very obvious he suffers a head wound that apparently causes some brain damage because his arm is withered, like he's had a stroke. His right eye is blind. He cannot see, and apparently that's the wound of this sword. That's what he says will happen to him. And this, when does this take place? Apparently, it takes place right at the end, because the next thing after that, just moving directly forward into chapter 12 and verse 1 of Zechariah, it reads, we read about the burden of the word concerning Israel, burden of the word of the Lord. I'm talking too fast and I'm skipping over my words. The burden of the word of the Lord concerning Israel. Thus declares the Lord, who stretches out the heavens and lays the foundation of the earth and forms the spirit of man within him. This is a prophecy directly from God. God claims credit for this prophecy. This is God speaking through Zechariah to the people of our generation and every generation. And here's what he says. This is just at the time, so that the foolish shepherd apparently comes just before this. This is the next thing, this chapter. And so notice then beginning in verse 2, behold, I'm going to make of Jerusalem a cup that causes reeling to all the people around. And when the siege is against Jerusalem, it will also be against Judah. And so I myself, I'm toying with the idea. In fact, farther than that, I'm kind of believing that what began on uh, October the 7th of 2023 may very well been the beginning of the fulfillment of these things. However, I have not yet seen the one who is the one who is wounded by a sword and the head wound that will be fatal and all that. I haven't quite seen that yet, but I can't help but wonder if that's not got to come sometime soon, if I'm right about what I'm thinking about that. So we want to keep our eye on these things. But he said, behold, I'm going to make Jerusalem a cup that causes reeling to all the people around. When the siege is against Jerusalem, it will also be against Judah. So the siege, when Hamas attacked Judah and southern Israel and created this, what is to Israel per capita the greatest loss of life that they've suffered since there's been a nation. It for this type of attack. This was a terrible event that took place, and I've heard of what it would have been, how big a city it would be, how big a mass of people it would be if there was an equivalency uh, per capita among in America. It was a terrible thing, and but when it happened, 7 entities stood up to come against Israel, and so Israel they were coming against Israel from Hezbollah to the north. Also, though, even farther than that, Iran onto their to the farther to the east. Uh, I don't know what all came out of Syria, but yes, I do. There was military in Syria. There was in the West Bank. There was in Yemen, and I'm not sure about Sudan and some of the others. But 7 different groups that all then joined into the idea of this warfare, that they were all coming together. And so Israel then began to take them out. And so you may remember that they came up with inventions that nobody had ever heard. From the time that the cell phone was developed, they began to develop the idea of using cell phones as weapons. And so they took out all of Hezbollah. First of all, they took out the Hezbollah commander with an attack and a bomb that had been placed in a place where he stayed when he was there. I don't know what the bomb was in, how it was built, or what, but it was one that couldn't be found, was not found. And so, no telling how many times he'd been in that room. But this one time, when it was time, they killed him. They killed all the different levels. Not only that, but with these cell phones, they killed all the leadership. a lot of leadership of Hezbollah, leaving them almost leaderless. And then the ones in the next ranks of command below that, they quit using cell phones and pagers and went to using radios. Those radios also were explosive devices that got those as well. And so Hezbollah was decimated. In Israel, I mean, in Iran, we haven't heard as much about that one. But what they did there, because Iran realized that it was cell phones, what the cell phones could do, they did not have cell phones. Their leaders didn't have the cell phones, didn't have the pagers. They got rid of all of that so that they couldn't do that. What they didn't realize was that Israel knew all of the bodyguards. Their intelligence had knew who the bodyguards were that were in charge of taking care of those men. Well, those bodyguards, as time went on, they were using their cell phones. They would use a cell phone that was supposed to be secure, but they would call someone or they would look at something online or whatever. And so Israel had the location of all those. When all of these cell phones came together, meaning all the bodyguards had come together, they knew who was the bodyguard for each one. And so they killed almost, I don't know how many, but the majority of their generals and their nuclear scientists and all of that, not only the top ones, but a few layers of them by doing that because their bodyguards had cell phones that could be tracked and they attacked the places where those were because the assumption had to be that the bodyguards were with them. And so they destroyed the the structure there. They did as far as Syria has lost its, and the ones that were, when all of this happened on October 7th of 2023, of those three, at least, and now Gaza itself, all of those commanders have been gone. Now Hamas, the Houthis, their prime minister, and right on down the line, they're taking out, and they said they're going to take out all of their leadership as well. So all of those, among those, whether they've been in the West Bank, wherever, but what they've done is they are decimating all of those. And so all around them, the people have been caused to reeling, but now the whole world is beginning to turn against Jerusalem and saying, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. What are you doing? You're taking out too many people. And so as they have been successful in these battles, the world that has been backing them has now withdrawn their support. So whether it's especially like England, France, and European countries, and a lot of countries all over the world, I think the United States is still, I believe, staying with them fairly well, better than I would have suspected that they might. And that's partly because of the president and those that are in charge right now. But the reality is that there's been all of that battle going on. And so we can look forward to the fact of that one with the deadly head wound should be revealed sometime soon, because that prophecy was given just prior to this one. But I want us to look more into this one, because this one, I believe, you will see, or we can see, we've studied it I don't know how many times, but now we can see the fulfillment of those things. So Jerusalem is a cup that's causing reeling to all the people around. The siege against Jerusalem is against Judah. It was against Judah first, and yet it's against Jerusalem. It will come about in that day, he said, that I'll make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples, and all who lift it will be severely injured. And that's the way it is right now. Everybody that thinks that they can do anything, they try to do something in this, take God's place in Jerusalem, let's just say, and begin to think that they can lift it, they can move it, they can do anything. They are injured. Everyone that has tried that is injured. And as time is going on, all the nations of the earth are beginning to be gathered against it. And so sooner or later, the time will come to when there will be the approval, probably in the United Nations Security Council or maybe General Assembly, there will be the approval to take out or to change the government in Jerusalem, but to at least make them stop the wars and stop all of these things. That is probably coming. And so we can look forward to that day. And then he says, in that day, when that takes place, declares the Lord, I will strike every horse with bewilderment, his rider with madness. But I will watch over the house of Judah while I strike every horse of the people with blindness. I don't know exactly what that means, but some of the things I've seen that have gone on in these days, I can almost imagine, I believe, what will probably take place. I think it's very good probability that the satellites that enable our munitions to be precision, and all of the countries of the world depend on the very same satellites that we depend on for GPS and all of that. But now China has a series of satellites now that they, with the help of President Clinton and others, have been were able to get the ability to put those same kind of satellites into orbit. They're also in orbit. And then this week they have, with a small satellite, that they said that the strength of the laser that it used was only I think it was 2 watts, if I remember right. But it took out a Starlink satellite, blew it up. And so there are showing, while the Russian premier, while Vladimir Putin and the Indian premier, while they're there with Xi and China, he is showing them these things that he has the ability to do. And so those things are going on. And I can see how that the weaponry of the West can be brought to nothing by these things. I don't know if that's what it means or it means something else. We'll know when the time comes. But he says, I'll watch over the house of Judah while I strike every horse of the people with blindness. So God has got a plan so that Judah will still he'll watch over them during that time. Then the clans of Judah will say in their heart, a strong support for us are the inhabitants of Jerusalem through the Lord of hosts their God. So Jerusalem and Judah will all, and I believe that Samaria, which is what is called the West Bank, is actually Samaria, that Samaria probably is part of Israel and will probably be brought back in soon into the area. It will be annexed because of some of the things that are going on. I believe that will probably be the case, that it'll be annexed, and so that they will, that Israel or Jerusalem will represent both Samaria and Judah to the south. And he says, but notice this, in that day I will make the clans of Judah like a fire pot among pieces of wood, a flaming torch among sheaves. So they will consume on their right hand and on their left, all the surrounding peoples, while the inhabitants of Jerusalem again dwell on their own sites in Jerusalem. So that's where we are right as to this point. Right now, everybody that attacks Israel has got to face the fact that it's going to be a really costly thing when you do that, because you don't know how that Israel has developed. They have more PhDs per capita than any other nation, I believe. I believe that is right. And so they have all of these very highly educated engineers and all of that working on all of these things. Like, how do you turn a battery, little bitty battery, into a bomb big enough to blow a person's leg off, or to even blow a person's head off if they've got it up against their head? How do you do that? And they've figured that all out in way back before anybody had any thought about anything, and had it put into, by the way, the phone that you carry. There's a good probability that if they were to select that phone as one of the ones that, this is my opinion, I haven't heard it from anybody else, my opinion is that probably if they had your number and they wanted to take you out, that they could do that by using a certain number that they would send to your cell phone. That would cause it to do just what it did to all of those that they sent that list of numbers. They all went off and they all blew up all at the same time. I think that little battery that's in there that is so explosive. And no, who knew it was explosive, or that explosive at least? These um, uh, anyway, uh, ion batteries of various types, whatever it is, but they will be like a fire pot among pieces of wood and flaming torch among sheaves. They'll just burn everything around them. Anything that comes against them, they will set it afire, and all of that they will do all of that while the inhabitants of Jerusalem, as they are now, are again dwelling in their own sites in Jerusalem, and now it's the capital of Israel is Jerusalem again, because of the first Trump uh, presidency, and that was changed. And so that's the way it is now. That these prophecies have been fulfilled. That one for certain. It's been fulfilled in our lifetime within the last few years. We were around when that happened. The Lord will also save the tents of Judah first, so that the glory of the house of David, the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem will not be magnified above Judah. And I think all that means is that the Lord will make Judah successful in that battle before there's even a battle against Jerusalem. The battle is going to come against Jerusalem, but before it does, because of the kings of the north and the armies that will be with them from Turkey and Iran to the side, that army led by Gog of Magog, when before that comes against Jerusalem, Judah will be saved by the Lord first, and then this other. In that day, the Lord will defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And the one who is feeble among them in that day will be like David. And the house of David will be like God, like the angel of the Lord before him. So in that day, the Lord, when it's a time that seems that it's, according to Ezekiel 38 and 39, it's going to be certain destruction for Jerusalem, for Israel. There's not going to be any way to escape on that night, but by morning, this is what will have taken place. God will have stood forward himself. God will have himself. And I think this is that maybe something coming through. Maybe if you were to be able to see it now, you might could see what he is sending that will bring about the destruction of those northern army, what's called the northern armies, those that are under the control of Russia in that time. Russia, Russia, Turkey, and Iran, and those that are with them. This very, very large, massive army is going to be destroyed in that night by something that comes out of the sky that will rain down fire and flamed ice, water, and all of that rain down upon them and will begin to destroy those armies. And then they will finish each other off. They will kill each other. Russians will kill the Turks. The Turks will kill the Persians, the Iranians, and they will kill the Russians. And they will just all fight each other till they're gone, till there's no one left to fight. And when that's done, all that's going to be left is the dead bodies. Those some burned, some battered, some just killed by swords or by the weapons, I guess you could say, that those people have. And it says, so that's what God's going to do. God says, in that day. Now, notice the word in that day, that particular day. And I think in this, I almost believe that it may be a 24-hour day, although I think a day can, be as 1,000 years is a day. But in that day, he said, I will set about to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. Now, on that day, in that day, he said, I will pour out on the house of David, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the spirit of grace and of supplication, so that they will look on me whom they pierce, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only son, and they will weep bitterly over him like a bitter weeping over a firstborn. And so that one day, and I know that I've gotten off because of the deal of suffering the deadly head wound, and I'll get back onto that probably next week. But on that one day, I've read this to you. How many times we read it together? God will pour out on the house of David the spirit of grace and of supplication. And that's what he did for us. The reason that you're saved is because God poured out on you the spirit of grace and the spirit of supplication. A spirit of grace makes you know that there's an open door, that you can come to Him through the blood of Jesus. You can come to God and find forgiveness. That's the spirit of grace, undeserved, unmerited favor from God that He is willing to forgive because of what Christ has done. The spirit of grace and of supplication. That's of asking God, God, be merciful unto me, the sinner, the one who, the sins I've committed, the things that I've done, forgive me and cleanse me. I'm asking you to forgive me and to cleanse me. The spirit of grace and the spirit of supplication. These two work hand in hand to bring about salvation. And then when they do that, they will look to me, it says, whom they have pierced. And there's a sense in which God was pierced when Christ was pierced on the cross. When He gave that, God the Father, in a sense, was pierced in the heart at the very same time, because that's His beloved Son in whom He was well pleased, who had never sinned, never done anything wrong, and yet He was dying for sin, and He did give His life for sin. And God was pierced, and Christ was pierced by the nails, by the spear in His side, and says, but they will look on me whom they pierced, and they will mourn for Him as one mourns for an only son, and they will weep bitterly over Him like the bitter weeping of the firstborn. That's the way, when that happens, what takes place then is that when God does that, in that day, it says in the next chapter, verse 1, in that day a fountain will be opened for the house of David and for the inhabitants of Jerusalem for sin and for impurity. And so that, and it talks about how many of them they will turn as one person. All those that are left of the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, they will turn to Him whom they pierced, whom we pierced, and they will seek His forgiveness and seek His grace and His mercy, and they will turn to Him. That's going to be a great day, and that's actually the biggest and best part, in a way, of the entire thing. Now, we're going to be talking about the Great Tribulation and all of that. And I'm thankful that not only is God going to be with them, even though many of them are going to be hidden away in a place that God has for them in their inner room, I guess you could say. But we also have an inner room, and that's the place where we go to pray. And that He says, enter into that inner room and hide for a little while until the indignation is past. He tells them uh, in in the same passage that we've read before, Isaiah 26:3, the steadfast mind you'll keep in perfect peace. That same chapter, when we get down, I believe it's in this chapter, in the very get down toward the end of it, he says in verse 20, "Come, my people, enter into your rooms, close the door behind you, hide for a little while until indignation runs its course." So when this time comes, the people of that are in Israel will escape. When the abomination of desolation takes place, those who have come to believe, they will escape from Israel to the place that God has prepared for them in the wilderness that Moses and the children of Israel came through. And they will go to the same place, and God will take care of them there. He will feed them there. He will take care of them there. But if you're scattered across the world, which you are and will be, at that point, you also can come into your inner room. You might not can go into a secret hiding place like that, but you can go into your inner room and hide for a little while and pray. And I believe this is talking about, may be talking about coming into your prayer closet, into that place where you pray while everybody else is quiet, either because they've gone to bed or because they've not gotten up yet, whatever the reason may be, or whatever it is it takes for you to be able to have that secret place. That, come, my people, he said, enter into your rooms and close the door behind you and hide for a little while until indignation runs its course. Because God's indignation is going to run its course, and it's about to come about. It's God's indignation, but also, as you've already seen, Michael's indignation. For behold, the Lord is about to come out of His place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. Notice this very carefully. I didn't mark it, and maybe I probably should have, but the earth will no longer cover her bloodshed and will no longer cover her slain. we're coming to a time very soon when the indignation that God has because of the bloodshed of nations like America or cities and states like New Mexico and places in New Mexico and other places where people from other states even come to have their abortions or to have someone killed, whatever it is. These it will no longer, and the indignation of God it will come about, and you're going to see as the cities become murdering grounds all over the country because of the fact of the blood that has been shed. Because the earth will reveal her bloodshed, and it will be paid for. It will no longer be covered. And so I know I didn't get as far. You might say I got sidetracked. It happens from time to time. I know that's hard for you to believe, but it does happen. I'm going to stop sharing at this time, give you an opportunity to turn on your cameras and your mics. And let's see if I can stop sharing. I think I can. I think I stopped sharing. There we go. I think we got it all together. Any question, comments, or anything, or are we pretty well ready to pray? I know I kind of went off on a different direction than what I had intended or what my had imagined in my mind, and I know that's going to happen. But I feel like we've got the flexibility and freedom to do that because sometimes it's necessary that we need to go. Seems like to me at least we need to go in a little different area. Okay, are we ready to pray then? All right, let's pray. Father, we are grateful for the many blessings you pour out upon us. We're thankful. We do pray, dear Lord, that you will be with us tonight and each night, dear Lord. Prepare our hearts, prepare our minds. You know that we've all got loved ones. We've all got ones that we want to see saved, that we're hoping, dear Lord, hope upon hopes that they will be saved and that they will make it. And may we recognize the shortness of time and the fact that if they are going to be saved, that it's going to be less and less likely as time goes on, and help us to begin to carry the burden for them and to bring them before you in our secret times as we come before you for prayer. Lead us, guide us, keep us, and bring us back together again soon. We pray, and for all that you do, we give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right. Well, God bless you, and I'm going to say good night to you, and we'll see you next week, hopefully. Okay.